Hi again, everyone, and welcome to a special one-on-one edition of Newsmakers. I'm Jerry Roberts. It is Friday, January 24th, 2025. And amid the doom and gloom elsewhere, today we're going behind the scenes on a good news local story that we broke right here on Newsmakers Wednesday. And that is the rebirth of the dearly departed Santa Barbara News Press. And joining me to talk about it is someone who is in the middle of this unfolding story, distinguished journalist and journalism educator Mi-Ai Parrish. Mi-Ai, welcome.
Thank you, Jerry. Really appreciate being here.
In her career, Ms. Parrish held a series of top executive newsroom jobs, including publisher of the Arizona Republic and similar posts with the Kansas City Star and the Idaho Statesman. As an educator, she is now affiliated with the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication at Arizona State University, where she is chair for media innovation and leadership. And for our purposes, today she is board chair of NEWSWELL, a nonprofit formally launched this week associated with the Cronkite School, which has acquired business assets of the historic news press, trademark, domains, social media accounts, and copyrights to the digital archives, with which it plans to restart online publication. So, Mi-Ai, let's begin with NewsWell. What is NewsWell?
NewsWell is a nonprofit based at ASU, and it provides back-end services, back-end operations, business strategies to help news sites become or remain sustainable. And the model is to have local journalists report and edit and disseminate the news in the local markets. And we're here to offer support and innovation and strategy.
And talk a little bit about how you became connected with what remains of the news press.
Oh, yes. So it's funny how small journalism is. I think you know how that works. And
And we should probably disclose me and I actually worked together back before the last ice age, and
it's
we neither of us wore glasses. But yeah, go ahead.
exactly one of the big changes. I can't see anything anymore. Yeah, so we've been in a quiet phase until this week about Newswell, but news leaks out, and as we had rolled out uh, in a soft launch, really, Stocktonia and Times of San Diego. Word got out, and as Ben Romo and their team were looking for a place to land and really not offload, but be able to ramp up the Santa Barbara News Press, he did his research and he called around and he found us, and so he reached out to us.
So Ben, leader of what we like to call the Elio-Montanari community in Santa Barbara, of course, uh, bid in the bankruptcy court for the paper archive of the news press, and in the process acquired these other assets. And I guess wasn't really interested in publishing a newspaper. So he came to you. That's how the deal went down.
Yeah, really interesting, right? We didn't know him. We didn't know what was going on in Santa Barbara. In terms of the ass, obviously I knew what was going on with the news press, but we didn't know that they were the ones who had rescued this out of bankruptcy and they were looking for a place to land. And we're very clear, they just um, didn't want the archives to go away. They wanted to find a way for them to be reborn, and their preference was to also restart the news press, which he can't operate. It's not his jam to do that. So
Right. So Newswell is basically I mean, the mission is to boost local news here and there around wherever. And so you go to various sites and do that. You mentioned the Stocktonian and San Diego. Now, those are two sites that are up and operating now, providing local news. Could you talk about each of those a little bit?
sure. So Stocktonia is a digital nonprofit focused on investigative and depth reporting that was launched in during COVID. And Stockton has a variety of challenges in their news ecosystem, a declining legacy title with corporate ownership, essentially pink slime site that has caused some agitation in the community. And some local folks launched this, but it was really struggling. and folks hadn't gotten paid, and I don't believe in slave labor, but they were doing good content that needed help. They need back end support and guidance. And so we took them on. They donated, the organization that had started them donated the assets, the property to us. They are, since we've taken over, their audience has increased about sixfold, which is pretty exciting. And we have ramped up their content in the meantime. They were publishing just a couple times a week, and now they're publishing, a couple dozen times a day. Launched a newsletter, hooked them up with AP, hooked them up with Cal Matters, just getting them more robust. And some fabulous interns and some actual reporters on staff. Pretty exciting. So, in an office, they were sort of floating from coffee shop to coffee shop. So, pretty excited about them. The Times of San Diego is a 10-year-old for-profit existing digital outlet. It was a startup about a decade ago. It is self-sustaining. It's been self-sustaining. So it was, but it doesn't have investigative depth reporting, that sort of thing. So sort of the opposite, like for-profit, sustainable with a business plan, no investigative, nonprofit, investigative, no business plan.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so in the case of Times of San Diego, they're successful, but without NewsWell, without some sort of support and collaboration, they weren't going to grow anymore. They weren't going to get to the next level, so we've been able to infuse, in that case, full-time reporters and all of that, but also partnerships with iNewsSource, which is another nonprofit in San Diego that does investigative work, getting them newsletters and investigative partnerships with Cal Matters and AP and all that too. So just beefing them up sort of from the other direction.
So
And donated, the guy who started it and owns it donated it to NEWSWELL.
yeah. So can you talk a little bit about how just elaborate specifically on this, on what resources NewsWell provides, and what does that look like? Is there a staff of drones at Arizona State working 24 hours a day to keep things
Oh,
going?
yeah. Well, one of the really great things, and again, I think it's all of this is unprecedented, just sort of how we're doing it. So we are just building it as we're going with educated opinion, educated guesses. But ASU is America's largest university. We have 185,000 degree-seeking students, so we're a behemoth. So on the back end side, we're providing finance support, legal, HR. We have relationships with advertising executives, that sort of thing. So we're able to do all the things but journalism, so the journalists can focus on the journalism. So pretty much anything you can imagine. In fact, we're figuring out today how to get the actual digital archives that have been rescued by Ben Romo and team, get them to Tempe so we can get them to our IT and engineering students and library sciences to actually professionally get these archives sorted out and relaunched and shared.
And on this sort of continuum that you describe between the Stockton model and the San Diego model, where does Santa Barbara fit? How do you foresee that?
Very excited about this. Obviously, I think obviously, Santa Barbara was not an example of a model that we thought we were going to be able to do it, to try.
Completely dead.
It's completely dead, right? Uh, so in that case, that is the only part of our model that Santa Barbara fits is a legacy title, which is sort of part of the original jam, not just starting stuff up, taking things that exist. And that it has assets in terms of the archives, which are very valuable and need to get back up again. But no, restarting from scratch was not part of the original plan. But we have a team of fantastic professionals who are certainly capable of doing that. And And again, with NEWSWELL, we're able to hire people. You know, we have HR professionals, we have a whole network of employment resources. So we can do the mechanics, the operational stuff to get that done. And we have top flight journalists who can help hire and lead and partner with the journalists that we'll hire on the ground. And
Yeah.
so,
Say a word, if you would, about your partners in this, Nicole and Carolyn.
so Nicole Carroll's the executive director of NEWSWELL. She was the editor in chief of USA Today just prior to being with to coming over with us. Before that, she was the editor of the Arizona Republic when I was the publisher of the Arizona Republic. So we worked together in that capacity. But we first crossed paths 26 years ago. So I've known her longer than you, Jerry, which is crazy. We were in the newsroom. I know it's crazy. Maybe I shouldn't even use the years anymore because it's dating me. But
Dog ears is better.
well, this is definitely dog years. Media years are definitely dog years. But Nicole and I were babies together in the Arizona Republic newsroom, eons ago. And there are several other people on the NEWSWELL team now that we have worked together for a decade or more in various capacities. So Christina Leonard, who's our operations chair, operations chief, she's most recently the head of journalism programs at Cronkite. We worked together at the Republic. Julie Thompson, who's coming in as she was my innovation director when I was at the Republic with Nicole. Lots of, Josh Susong, who's our investigative chief. He was most recently the investigative editor for USA Today. And prior to that, he was the investigative editor for Nicole and for me when we were at the Republic. And he was the editor on the Pulitzer Prize winning project that we call The Wall, that was about actually at the time, candidate Trump's promises about how he was going to handle and build a wall at the southern border.
Mhm.
So lots of talent, but also lots of old time journalism friends getting together to tackle this.
And Santa Barbara is sort of notoriously hard place to parachute in here. Parochial is a word that might come to mind. Um, so how are you handling the, kind of coming in from Arizona from the outside, and here's a revered institution, dead as it is, but it's been around since the 1870s, and people had a lot of connection to. What's your perspective on that?
Well, it always is hard to come from the outside. As a publisher, each time I went in, I was parachuting into a community that had its own whole set of things. And the first thing we do is listen, just got to have some humility in this, in the entire situation, right? We're doing a thing that's never been done in a community that we haven't, that we don't work in and we don't know. And launching a thing that's never been launched, a legacy title. Other than that, it's all cool. And, a few other things like it's really, kind of expensive to live there and some other challenges that we're working on. But back to it, I mean, really listening. And I know some people are like, you're on a listening tour. What's your listening tour? But for real, be journalists, be reporters, and get in and talk to people who know and build relationships and sources and really rely on people like you, frankly, who have been there and know that and listen and we have professional experience, but we don't have that local experience. And so we're relying on the experts. Now, in the case of San Diego and Stockton, a little bit easier because there were people there, staff running the thing. But there are so many news press, we'll call it alums, not escapees, right? Alums who have already been reaching out like you and others. So we're counting on your help, I guess.
What is the plan or the strategy going forward, and a kind of a timeline?
So, the next couple of months, but not longer than a couple of months, we want to move with careful dispatch, right? That we're being thoughtful and deliberate about that. But you deserve to have a newspaper back, right? So we want to do that as soon as possible with as much deliberate care. And it will launch back first and maybe forever digital. So, there's not a plan in place to go back into print, or I don't know, launch a monthly magazine or whatever, any other thing digital. Digital only, digital first. But and that is in the works already, getting the archives put together. We've got plans, sort of the underpinning of having stuff on the site. But other than that, it's not, nothing's determined. We want to, again, get out and listen and talk to people and build out a thoughtful plan. I've never gotten to do a startup on a legacy title, right? And it's just crazy. So how do you honor that history? How do you respect, the community connections and the importance of the title and the in Santa Barbara, but really take advantage of the clean slate.
But you're talking about actually hiring
Oh,
journalists and paying
yeah,
them actual
absolutely.
money and stuff like
Actual
that.
money. I mean, I told you this. I just don't believe in slave labor, Jerry. Like, seriously, not.
We here at Newsmakers are.
Well, yeah, right. I think if you'd asked me, I'd just say that's not a good business model, but I appreciate all you're doing. But
But
even
talk, so what does that look like? I mean, are you thinking that you would have a local editor or just
absolutely local
oh,
editor, like full stop local editor. And that's the case in San Diego and Stockton. Now, San Diego and Stockton, part of the model was taking on the existing editor. They have become they become our employees. They get health benefits, 401k match, education benefits. You can get a degree, or anyone in your family get a degree from ASU. I mean, it's pretty cool. So yes, we would hire somebody in the local market. We just don't have somebody in the local market now because, well, it went dark. And the same with reporters.
yeah.
That
But ASU also, I mean, there is a pool of young, eager, ambitious journalists there as well
Yes,
that
I'm
you can
sitting in
draw on,
my
correct?
faculty office at the Cronkite School, which has we do have tremendous students. In fact, when I posted on LinkedIn about NEWSWELL, a bunch of the people who commented are my former students, which is, I don't know, just really darling. And they're out there doing the work. One of them's in Santa Barbara. It's kind of crazy. But so we have amazing students, lots of different kinds of programs, a master's in investigative journalism, multimedia journalism, digital audience building. So we've got kids who can do a lot of different things. Um, we've also worked in these local markets already with, some of our kids as interns and student workers, but also other schools and certainly local schools, because we want students who want to be back in those markets, so it's a pipeline back into the place, whether you're from there, which is our preference. And that's worked out really well in San Diego and Stockton so far. We've been able to hire on young people who are from those markets, which is ideal.
Right. And we met the other day, after Ben had announced this. Ben's a very secretive fellow, but he finally let us print his version of how this all went down. But when you and I and Nicole met, you used the word additive
Mhm.
about what the model is like. Talk about that if you would.
So another perhaps unique aspect of NewsWell is, nonprofit is a tax status, but we are not in it for the profit. We don't have a profit motive. We're a university. Um, and our motive is to have as many people as possible read and consume as much journalism knowledge as possible. So to that end, nothing is behind a paywall. Anybody can republish with giving us credit. It's out in the world, and we're not looking to compete, right? Like, we want to be. So part of what we're doing is we're listening is like, where are the gaps in coverage? Where are the gaps in the types of coverage? You and I talked about sort of investigative, long form, depth journalism around, particularly around topics of importance in Santa Barbara County. And so we'll be able to bring all of that to to Santa Barbara, to the news press, and being thoughtful about where the existing local media is, and hopefully be good collaborators and good partners where it makes sense. We're already seeing that mainly in San Diego. San Diego, we've got some pretty good local collaborations going on with operations that would otherwise be competitors in a for-profit space.
What does that look like? Be, be a little
Yeah.
specific
So
about
one
that.
of the just cool things in San Diego, there are many digital startups, different things going on. One of them is iNewsSource, and they've been around for several years, and they're an investigative arm, which Times of San Diego is not. Times of San Diego has, 1 million views a month. It's a pretty robust, it's a successful, robust site. Our friends at iNewsSource, more like 60,000. So we love their content, they love our audience, and we actually decided to co-locate. So we're officing with them, sharing content, sharing reporters, sharing, eventually we're doing little baby steps of this, but eventually projects. So say homelessness, big problem in San Diego. They've got chops that we don't have. We've got heft that an audience that they don't have, and partnering on that, just force
Sure.
multiplying out of that. And you can, because in that case, it's a little easier because they're also a nonprofit, but the more the merrier, like you said in one of the stories, the more eyeballs, the more knowledge, the more content. We're also sharing with them, sharing over to them. We have this might be breaking news. I don't know if we've announced it. We have a All Britain political fellow. So the guy who founded Politico has a bunch of fellows who are essentially DC political journalists who are assigned to these markets. So we have one very excited, one for San Diego, and we will be sharing that with iNewsSource. Not that we have to, not that we need to, but like it's better
Yeah.
for everyone.
Journalists collaborating. What an idea.
It's so crazy. That's the one thing, whereas we tell people, they're like, how does that even work? How do you not compete? I'm like, I think we should really try it because
Yeah, we had a bad experience here with something called Mission and State about 10 years ago or so of collaboration. So there's some scars there. So I wish you luck on that.
yeah, well, on the Mission and State front, I mean, what we're doing is hard. Like standing up all this stuff, and we have the benefit, I mean, tremendous benefit of having an existing giant entity, the university, that already has HR and finance and legal and, all the things, and also has a place where I can call, the IT guy at the largest university in the country and say, hey, I've got this mess of archives with piles of computers and help. And he immediately sends back a note saying, I'm going to assemble a team. We're going to get, student workers. We're going to take care of this. Just let me know who I call to pick this stuff up. Mission and State didn't have that, right? Like it's hard. It's really hard to do this. So on the collaboration front, you couldn't even get to collaboration, right? Because you're busy figuring out how to operate. So we
Yeah,
have.
that's true. We couldn't get to collaboration. That's a fact. What so one other thing you mentioned in terms of the business model is when and not to do a history lesson, but historically local news was based on advertising, building an audience, and selling the audience. More recently, it's been subscription. You talked about how it's 1/3 advertising, 1/3 subscription, 1/3 philanthropy, just as a framework. Expand on that if you would.
Yeah, let me correct you a little bit. So it's 1/3 advertising, 1/3 membership. So we're
Membership. Okay.
yeah, and I say that because it's slightly different. Subscription, you're saying I'm giving you whatever, $10 a month, and you're getting a thing. Membership is, I think, a PBS where everything is free, but if you give me $5 a month ongoing, you get benefits like our Passport app. I run a PBS station here too. So you have access to our streaming services.
And a tote bag.
and you want a tote bag, I can get your tote bag. Stockton, we're working on getting Stocktonia coffee. That's probably
Swag.
yeah, they have a great local roastery right across the parking lot. But anyway, I digress. So membership,
1/3 philanthropy, I think was.
right, and
Yeah.
1/3 philanthropy, and the model for that is national philanthropy, which we've raised about $8 million so far, in support of the NEWSWELL operations and people like Josh, our investigative editor, and Sapna, who came to us from CalMatters as a product expert. But also that filters into those properties. But that national money is really for NEWSWELL as a whole, and then local philanthropy filling in the local individual sites.
Yeah. Oh, Mia, you've been so generous with your time, but before I let you go, say a word about the whole problem of local news and misinformation, disinformation, just nothing too big. But
Well,
it's it seems to me that's the fundamental problem that afflicts us all, whether it's politics or any other field, is what's happened to the information space. But it's been particularly acute, I think, in terms of local news.
absolutely. When you de-invest in newsrooms, as has happened, or titles close, um, the rats come out to play, right? It's if nobody's watching, crazy stuff happens, and we need to get back in there and watch uh, the misinformation space. Some of it, there's deliberate misinformation and disinformation that's being pushed in, which we know we're dealing with. There's also just sort of in a vacuum, in an absence of knowledge, people will fill it in and sort of make their own story. So it's really, really important to have local boots on the ground in these places, shining a light. And we're in terms of things like AI, that's another benefit for us being part of ASU, large scale AI investigators and researchers. The technology and misinformation space is something that we're already doing work in. And that's another benefit of it, NEWSWELL being nonprofit, by the way, is when we do this research, when we create new products, when we innovate technologies that are in service of and help to local journalism, we can just share them, and not just with our properties or just with nonprofits. Like, we want everybody to be successful. If we learn something that is going to benefit you in terms of misinformation, AI crazy scraping, cookie problems, whatever, we want to share that. And I feel really fortunate to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Do it as much as we can, and hopefully, I know it will help. We just need to do it with dispatch and scale.
Yeah. And when we've heard a lot about news deserts where
Mhm.
local news has disappeared entirely. We're kind of lucky here. I call us a semi-arid news desert because we've got the Independent and Newshawk and Ed Hat, which do provide content. How do you foresee aligning with them?
Um, well, aligning, I'm not sure exactly aligning, but absolutely open to collaborating. And there is enough space for everybody. There's also uh, there are pretty good lanes that are going on right now, and there are big gaps. There are gaps in types of coverage, gaps in depths of coverage, um, and I think it's additive. I think it really is. It can be a force multiplier, can be an amplifier, and we want to share. We want to make more goodness for Santa Barbara.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's a great place to leave it. Mi-Ai Parrish, thank you so much for joining us today and talking about this very exciting project. And I was so delighted this morning. I read Nicole's piece on the Pointer site and was not aware that the News Press website was live. And I went on the site and I signed up for the ongoing newsletters about things. It was really pretty cool. So,
Yes, get in there. asunewswell.org and newspress.com are both live, and you can sign up for newsletters and donate. Feel free to donate.
all
We
right.
already got a couple yesterday, so it's pretty.
And we'll look for something live when April, May, something like that, you think?
Yeah, something
All
like
right.
that. Yeah.
All right. Mia, thank you so much. Mia Parrish from Arizona State University, the Cronkite School, NEWSWELL, and now the News Press.
Yes. Thanks so
Thanks.
much, Jerry. Really
Thank you.
enjoyed it.
And thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you next time on Newsmakers.